Hello, hello. You are tuned into Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell here on UBM Radio, your station for faith, talk, and music. It is Motivational Monday, and we have an interesting topic for you today that could save your life. We're going to be talking about, are you at risk for a stroke? Are you at risk for a stroke? Not many people know the answer to that question. Well, today we are hoping to empower you with information so that you can have the answer to that question. I want to encourage you to stay connected with me on all forms of social media, Facebook/Warriors Talk with an S. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope at Warriors Talk 1. You can email me at warriorstalk1@gmail.com. You can go to the website for up-and-coming events and any information as it relates to Warriors Talk by going to warriorstalk.org. If you ever miss a live broadcast of the show, don't panic. Just go to Spreaker.com, and that's SPREAKER.com. Follow me, and I will follow you back. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell for Eyes on the Community. And again, I am giving out a gift to the next 2 people who actually subscribe. Once you subscribe and I get your information, I will send you out a thank you gift for subscribing to my YouTube channel. We will always love to hear from you. You can call in at 312-754-4333. This show is actually dedicated to any and everybody who's going through a storm right now, whether it be in the physical, the mental. There is so much going on, so much devastation in the land, and we want God to do a lot of things for us, but we have to make sure that we do exactly what He requests us to do as well. So I want to make sure that everybody, if you have time in your day, if you don't have money, we always talk about, just say a prayer. Say a prayer for the next person. Our healing verse is coming from Proverbs 18:21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. Amen. And today, again, we're going to talk about, are you at risk for a stroke? And I want to make sure that I highlight my sponsors because they are responsible for me going live week after week. I have a new sponsor alert, which is Sisters Working It Out, and I'm really excited about them. They are a health advocacy in motion. And they deal with breast cancer patients, male and female, and they take them from the beginning of diagnosis all the way to the end with transportation, hospital visits. They help you with medication, and they connect you to different resources that may be needed, because we know that a lot of people that have this diagnosis could be underinsured. So they make sure that they're there with you when you're going to the doctor to hear some of the questions as well as the diagnosis, so they can help break down that information for you. They are also looking for community health educators as well. So you can go to sistersworkingitout.org and you can apply to help them educate the community. We also have Emanuel Church of God in Christ with my pastor, Michael Richardson. And you can go to our website, which is EmanuelCogic.com, and you can get our service information. If you have insurance needs, you can go to PaulaKelly with Allstate, and just go to PaulaKelly at Allstate.com. If you have any pest control issues, which you know some people do, you can contact Red Alert, and that's with Candace Lucas. You can go to redalert.com, and she is specializing in quality pest control needs. And then we have Gloria Dotson with Mary Kay, and she is catering to all of your beauty needs from head to toe. So thank God for my sponsors. They make it possible for you to share your testimonies, for us to connect everyone with services, and to keep you informed week after week. Again, we're going to be talking about, are you at risk for a stroke? So if you're tuning in on Facebook, I encourage you, hey Rhonda, I encourage you to share the video, like the video, and invite others in on the video so that they can get this information. So what is a stroke? Because a lot of people don't know what a stroke is. Sometimes we go with hearsay when it comes to different diagnoses. So a stroke can be defined as a brain attack. It often occurs when blood flows to the area of the brain that cuts off. The brain cells are deprived, and oxygen and glucose needs to survive. They actually die. So if not caught early, then permanent brain damage could occur. Even death can result. And there are 2 types of strokes. You have the ischemic stroke and you have the hemorrhagic stroke. So the ischemic stroke is actually the blood clot that forms in the brain. The hemorrhagic is actually the blood vessel that erupts in the brain. And then you also have, some people say, oh, they had a mini stroke, which they call it the TIA. So you can have a mini stroke, but we encourage you, even if you think you had a mini stroke, to not deny those symptoms. Don't ignore those symptoms. The best information I can give you is to go see your doctor. That will be the best information for you. So are you at risk for a stroke? Well, I am excited because we are welcoming back a very special guest who decided, I was like, she told me a little bit about her journey as it relates to strokes. And I've been seeing a lot of posts lately on cancer, strokes, and all these different disasters that are going on in the world. And so we know we cover cancer all the time. And we do many different diseases, not just cancer, because we know we suffer from a lot of different things. And because we don't really have the knowledge to take care of those diseases or to do things to prevent those diseases, then we suffer. The Bible says we suffer for the lack of knowledge. So we don't want to do that. We want to empower you with the knowledge so that you can take action with what you know. So my special guest, she is an award-winning author as well as a stroke survivor. And correct me if I'm wrong, not one, not two, but three. She is a 3-time stroke survivor, and she's also she's the founder of APS Books and More, which stands for Author Promoting Success. She does publishing, she does consultation, she can help you with your writing. She also, the reason why I wanted to bring her on the show is because she's well versed in many different subjects. So she's a well-rounded person that I can call her an expert, a resident expert that can bring some valuable information because she has suffered firsthand with a stroke. So she knows exactly what she's talking about when she shares her journey and when she gives you information on what to do. So I want you to welcome back to the show award-winning author Toneal Jackson.
Thank you so much for having me, ReShell. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm excited that you're here. I'm excited because you are here and you are able to tell your story. Not many, we know, not many get to make it through a stroke because some of them don't even know.
Yeah. And you know, that's actually what happened for me. You said about me having 3 major strokes, and if I can just give a bit of background, I suffered my first stroke in 2005. So it was March of 2005. I was right at being 25. So yeah. And so one of the things that people don't know or they don't think about is that you actually can be very young. It's not just, 40s or 50s or 60s. And it wasn't until the top of this year that I really began to explore or research more information about strokes. And but to go back, when I had my first one in 2005, I didn't know that's what it was. I just remember I had come home one day. I don't remember if I was working or whatever it was, and I just knew I had this ridiculously bad headache. And so I told my husband, I'm like, you know what, I need to lay down. And this was before we had all the children. I think I had only had 2 of my girls at this point, but they were, and I don't remember why they were not at home, but they were not at home, and that's just really how God worked it out. I had laid down the entire day, and probably about 6:30 or so I got up to make dinner, and the whole room was just kind of spinning, but I worked through it, brought my husband his plate, and I remember, I'm telling him, I'm like, Jerome, I need you to grab my plate because something, and before I could finish it, everything, my entire right side was just totally paralyzed. Like I could not move at all. And so, and it was a good thing I was sitting down because otherwise I would have fallen. And so I couldn't talk. I couldn't do anything. And so maybe about, I don't know, close to 5-6 minutes later, things started to kind of restore. And so I'm like, oh my God, what was that? But me being the person that I was, I didn't take it seriously. And so my husband is trying to get me to the hospital, as you were saying. And I'm like, I'm fine. Everything is fine. I don't know. It's just a hiccup. I'm fine. He calls my dad. You know, here I am growing and growing. He's calling my dad on me. And my dad is like, baby, go ahead, go to the hospital. And so we're getting to the hospital. He takes me to the hospital, to the emergency room. And he's like, well, do you want me to drop you off at the front door? Or, you know, do you want to just park in the parking lot? And I'm like, you are just making way too much of this. Park in the parking lot and let's walk, you know. And so we're walking, and he's asked me, are you okay? Are you okay? And then I'm like, I'm fine. And next thing I know, I've fallen. I've lost all of my extreme. I couldn't do anything. And so he had to go and get somebody, and they had to come and get me, put me in a wheelchair, get me into the hospital, whatever. And so they took me in immediately for a head CT, and they were telling me, oh, well, no, we're definitely keeping you, because they saw all these different spots on my brain. And so I was in the hospital for about a week. Like, I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. And as things were coming back, I was able to talk, but my speech was extremely slurred. I couldn't really think fast. I couldn't really do anything. And I had multiple MRIs, because initially the doctors thought that I had MS. And so after, I think the first MRI, I was in for another couple days, and then they were saying, well, you know what, that came back, and now you don't have as many spots on your brain, so we want to keep you, we want to do it again. So the bottom line was, I think we went through a total of 3 MRIs in the course of a week. And by the last one, there was only one spot on my brain they saw. So they're like, you know what, they really couldn't explain it. And so I went through all types of neurologists and things like that. And so in either case, my next major stroke was in 2009, but in between those 4 years, I probably had about, I want to say 3 or 4, as you call them, the mini strokes or the TIAs. And, you know, they would always ask me, well, what were you doing, or what happened? I'm like, I don't know. I have no clue what's going on. And so by 2009, I don't even know how many different diagnoses I had faced. And I know the major diagnosis that they had eliminated, again, they thought it was MS, but it wasn't. They thought I was epileptic, but I wasn't. You know, so they just could not come up with a diagnosis. I went through 3 different neurologists, and nothing. They could not come up with a reason why this kept happening. And again, I'm young, right? So, because we don't think that, I'm not even 30, and I've already had 2 major strokes and a few mini strokes. And so, and I've went to different hospitals, so it's not like, okay, well, this hospital is right. By 2009, I think I went to 4 different hospitals. And so then, 2014 was my last major stroke. So I thank God, because that was August of 2014. So I celebrated 3 years stroke free, if you will, this past August. But it was on a Sunday for 2014. And what happened, I remember being in church, and I remember feeling my right side. And it was always my right side. I remember feeling my right side just going numb, and I couldn't, move it or whatever. And we were in church, and everybody began to pray, and, after a while, the feeling began to come back or whatever. And so in either case, I remember going home, and I said, I just want to rest. Because when you've gone through, and I'm not telling anybody that what I did was the right thing to do, but for me, I just gotten frustrated, because by 2014, I had literally had about 10 or 11 mini strokes, and I had 2 major strokes, and they could never tell you what's wrong. This was my experience. They could never, other than telling you that you suffered a stroke, they could never tell you what to do, what not to do. Now, and I don't know if I should give the names of the hospitals, but I mean, I literally been to like 6 different hospitals, and nobody could give me an actual reason why this was happening. And so the final diagnosis that I got was just that I have a severe stress disorder. And so when I am too stressed out, it throws everything in my body. It just throws it off. And so when I went home that Sunday night, and I'm resting, and I could kind of feel my body tingling. That's all I could say. And when you've had it enough, you know what's going on. And before I could tell my husband, I was about to tell him, and before I could get it out, I was out. Like I was totally unresponsive. Like the paramedics, I could hear everything that was going on in my room, but I couldn't do anything. I had paramedics in my room. They're lifting my hand. It's just going straight down. I couldn't open my eyes. They're like, they're telling my husband. I could hear everything. They're telling my husband, oh, she's totally unresponsive. My girls out there, they're screaming. Because even in the past, when I've had things go wrong, I've always been able to be responsive enough to either give them that look. And as a mom, we can give that reassuring look, or I could squeeze their hand even if I couldn't talk. But in 2009, 2014, there was nothing that I could do. I'm like literally hearing them tell my husband, oh, she's unresponsive, what's going on, and so they're lifting me and putting me in whatever the contraption was. And I had never been in a ambulance before this year, because every time I suffered something, I always was able to, get my strength together and somebody would drive me to the hospital or whatever. And so, I'm hearing all of this talk in the ambulance, is she gonna make it? And I'm like, oh God, all I could do was think, Jesus help me. That's really all. I couldn't even say anything. I couldn't open my eyes. And so I remember I had been in the hospital. I don't know how long I had been there, to be honest with you. And I just remember coming to. I remember, being able to finally feel my toes again and moving my toes, and then being able to move my hands. And so, yeah, it's been a journey. All of my strokes have been ischemic, as you were talking about the differences between them. And I thank God for that, because I don't necessarily know if I would have had the same testimony had they not been ischemic, because those are the quote unquote less severe of the two.
They say 80% of strokes are ischemic.
Yes. And so those were the ones I had. But what I learned this year when I started doing my research about strokes, because June is actually National Aphasia Month. And aphasia, which I didn't know what it was, and I suffer from it. Aphasia is when you're talking, but your words don't make sense. So it's kind of like a jump. So say if I'm asking you to give me the bottle of water, in my mind, I might think that I said, give me the water, but I might have actually said, pass me the headphones. You see what I'm saying? So like your whole mind and your speech, everything is totally jumbled. What you're saying is not what you're trying to say. So you're saying words, they just don't make sense. And so I had suffered from that, but I thought I was tweaking. Like I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, and so I'm like, let me put myself on punishment and go take a nap, And so like after a while, it would just kind of like come back. And so when I saw in June, they're talking about ever suffered a stroke and and they started giving the information about aphasia, and I started looking into it. I'm like, oh my God, this is what I had. And they say how most stroke patients or stroke sufferers, they go through this. It's like an after effect, because your mind is still scrambled. And so it's like an after effect. And so then when I started doing more research, and they said, well, here are your 3 things you were asking about if you're at risk for stroke. Right. And so they say, well, if you are African American, if you're a woman, and if anyone in your family has ever suffered from a stroke, then you could be at risk. So the fact that I'm an African American woman who had both a grandmother and my biological father had strokes. My biological father suffered a hemorrhagic stroke, and that's what he died from.
Oh, wow. How old was he when he passed?
Oh, God, let me see. It was 14 years ago, so he couldn't have been no more than maybe 48.
Oh, wow. So,
yeah.
Because I think sometimes when people think of a stroke, they're thinking about people. I think the doctors, too. Somebody 65 and older. When you come in and look at you, they go, oh, no, you're too young for a stroke, and then they may be looking for other things. Yeah. But by you knowing your family history, you're able to say, no, wait a minute. This runs in my family.
Yep.
And I think it's important for people to know, even with your husband, it's important for him to know the different things to look for. They talk about the word fast. So when you think about fast, you're thinking about your face drooping, your arm weakness, your slurred speech. And then if you're seeing all of that, it's time to call 911.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, we kind of got it after a while. And what I will say to, you know, whoever is listening or watching is that you don't be embarrassed. And see, if I can really kind of harp on that, because that was the mistake that I made. Like when I had it, I thought it was something wrong with me. And I thought that, because again, I'm going to the doctor, I'm doing all these tests, and nobody could tell me what's wrong with me other than the fact that I had a stroke. They couldn't tell me why. And I'm like, okay, I'm 25 years old. And, you know, now I'm 28 years old and I'm 29 years old. You know, like all these things are happening. And I didn't want my children to ever see me like this. I didn't want people that I knew to see me like this. So I would always pray, Lord, please, if I get sick, please don't ever let it have to be. And it's like, it's not you're getting sick. This isn't like you're having something that could potentially be fatal happen to you. And so the fact is that you actually would want to be around people, because when this happens to you, and if you become paralyzed or whatever, you need there to be somebody that knows that this is something that you suffered with before, because that's the other thing. When you've had a stroke, you are more susceptible to have more strokes. And I didn't know that. And so these were things that I really, like this year, I kind of became more empowered and not looking at myself as a victim, but as a survivor, you know, because I didn't know how serious it was. I didn't know that everybody didn't make it through a stroke. Everybody didn't just power right back. And, you know, but what I could tell people is that, I do know what it's like not to be able to move, because I was paralyzed. Like I couldn't walk for a week. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't talk. And I know what that's like. And so when I was blessed to be able to be restored, now I get that that's a blessing. That's not something that just naturally happens for everybody.
Now, there is a window that you have to get medical attention if you have had a stroke. And many people don't know that. When you are within that window, they can do stuff to save you, do stuff to prevent further damage, but you have to get to the hospital to get that medicine within that. I think it's a 3-hour window that you have to get there, and many people don't know that, because sometimes people don't even know they suffer from a stroke, or they're by themselves and they can't do anything. By the time somebody find them, it's too late. Absolutely. The damage has already been done. They may live through it, but they may have brain damage. And so it's important for you, if you're with somebody, that they know what to look for in case you have a stroke. And then you should know, like you already know your family history. They talk about the different things that would make you, as you would say, more susceptible to a stroke. So you have things that are controllable and things that are non-controllable. So the controllable factors are high blood pressure, controlling diabetes, high cholesterol, smoking, your alcohol intake, being overweight. So those are things you can actually control on your own, so you won't have to worry about having a stroke. And sometimes we don't know that those things are linked. It says coronary artery disease. Sometimes we don't even know those things are linked when it comes to having a stroke. So I think if we educate ourselves and find out exactly if it runs in your family, whether it does not run in your family, just knowing that we are African American and we are susceptible to most of these things out here. Absolutely. And it's different. A stroke in a woman is different from a stroke in a man, and many people don't know that. It's totally different. And so what we're going to do really quick is we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the difference between a woman and a man when you have a stroke, because it is a difference, different things to look for. And we know that they say 1 in 4 people die from a stroke, and it's the 5th leading cause of death in America. So it is something to be alarmed about. So we're going to listen to Karen Clark-Sheard, My Words Have Power. All right, that went quick. Okay, hey Facebook. Hey Vernita. Hey Stacy. Hey Clarissa. Hey, Paula, thank you so much. Paula is one of my sponsors with Allstate. Again, you can go to, I mentioned you earlier, Paula, you can go to PaulaKelly at Allstate.com, and she will give you the best service in the world. Let's see who's on here. Hey, Linda. Hey, Reggie. Hey, Udella. Hey, Chester. Hey, Dion. Hey, Rhonda Kelly. Hey, Freeman. Okay, you guys, everybody that's on here, can y'all please share this video? Hey, Dwayne, please share this video. Invite somebody in. Hey, Bam, like the video so that they can get this important information. We're talking about, are you at risk for a stroke? Are you at risk for a stroke? And we have stroke survivor here, Toneal Jackson, and she has had 3 strokes. And her first stroke was at the age of 25. So we know the age goes out of the window when it comes to that. So the reason why we have shows like this to give you information so that you can be aware and take action. We're all about moving away from awareness to taking action with what you know. And so to know that at 25 that you can have a stroke, we think when we're young we're invincible. It won't happen to us. Nothing can happen to us. Guess again. Absolutely. Guess again. Absolutely. So we have to empower ourselves with information that would help save our lives and the people around us. Again, the word fast is very crucial when it comes to a stroke. So when you think somebody is having a stroke, then you have to make sure that you go through the fast. You're gonna look at their face. You know, is their face, is it drooping on one side? Look at the arm. Are they able to lift it? Is it numbness in the arm? Pay attention to that. And then you're gonna listen to the speech. Is it slurred? Because sometimes they can't say anything. Sometimes you know if this person always talks and you know how they sound, then you should be able to tell if something is wrong with their speech. And I think sometimes if people have many strokes, they may be kind of standoffish. And the reason why I say this is because my children's great-grandmother had a stroke. But they didn't know she had a stroke. I think she had a mini stroke. She might have had multiple mini strokes, but they didn't know. And I remember her daughter saying she came over and she was kind of standoffish and she was talking to her. She really wasn't responding. She just thought she was in the mood. Well, maybe a couple days later, they found her unresponsive. And we don't know how long she was out. The kids came home from school and they called, for the paramedics to come. But by the time they got her to the doctor, she never came back. And they mentioned she had a stroke. But she probably had that stroke days before, and it might have been multiple ones, but nobody really recognized what was going on with her. So, yeah. So it's important to remember that fast. I mean, if you just in doubt and you don't know if they're acting strange and you don't know what's wrong with them, the best thing you can do is just to get them to the doctor. And like Toneal was saying, they said, yeah, you had a stroke, but nobody could tell her why. Why it led up to me having a stroke. What is it that I can do so that I cannot have a stroke? What methods are out there to prevent a stroke? And so they said normally, like I said, we talked about the controllable factors, which are the high blood pressure. We know a lot of people in the African American community suffer with high blood pressure. So if you can keep that under control, keep your numbers under control, then a stroke is something you don't have to worry about. Diabetes, when it's uncontrollable, it can also lead to a stroke. Simple things like smoking. And I know smoking can be addictive, and sometimes some people may need help stopping. But, I mean, if it's a matter of life and death, cigarette life, what you gonna choose? Right. Even with alcohol. I mean, some of these things are a choice. These are things that you can control. Being overweight, exercising, watching what you're eating, and basically just going to the doctor and staying on top of your health. So those are things that we can do to control our risk factors when it comes to strokes. And we know, again, we talked about there being 2 types of strokes. Some of the symptoms Toneal talked about was weakness or numbness in the arm or the face, loss of vision. It says loss of speech, difficulty talking or understanding what they're saying, sudden severe headache. She mentioned having a bad headache for no known cause, loss of balance, being unstable, unable to walk. And so if you know somebody is suffering from all of that, even yourself, you should be seeking medical attention. Or if you know somebody you love is going through something like this, then think about fast. Think about looking at their face, thinking about their arm, thinking about their speech. And then that T is for time to call 911. So we're on break and we're talking about, are you at risk for a stroke? Hey, Chevelle. Hey, Lady Iris. If you guys are just tuning in, can you please share this video? I notice when we talk about serious stuff, people don't like to share. They don't like to share the video. They don't like to tune in. But this is it's life or death. It is. So I appreciate you guys listening, and we'll be back in a couple of seconds.
Morning worship takes place at 11 a.m. Every first Sunday.
You ready, motivational
prayer at 9 a.m.
Okay, we're gonna come back with our motivational moments in a few minutes.
Join us for Bible studies on Wednesdays, 6:45 for prayer and 7 for the Bible Institute classes.
Does that even sound like me?
That's you.
Join us at Emanuel.
Okay, hey you guys, again, I'm sorry, we are listening to the commercial. Hey Mary. She said Mary Millsap.
Yes. Hey, Mary.
She says, hello, International World United. She goes, I love you, www.weareaps.com.
She is the forever assistant.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mary.
Yes. Hey, Valerie. Mary be on it.
Yes.
For real.
Yes, ma'am.
She be on it. Okay, I'm trying to look up the difference between a man and a woman. I found it.
773-922-9442. Look for our
Okay, give me a moment, Curtis. We're coming back in less than a couple of seconds. Hey, Andrea. Are we ready? And we are back. This is Lady ReShell with Warriors Talk here on UBM Radio, your station for faith, talk, and music. And we are talking about, are you at risk for a stroke? I have award-winning author with me, Toneal Jackson, and she has shared with us she has suffered 1, 2, 3 strokes. And the first stroke was at the age of 25. Hey, Andrea. And so we are, first of all, I'm shocked because, you know, we all think that when you have a stroke, you're normally older. On here it says 65 according to the American Stroke Association. They say 65, but she is living proof that that is not true. She had her first stroke at 25. What we're going to do before we get back into the topic is we're going to do our motivational moment with Mylea Smoon.
Hi. Lady ReShell, how are you tonight?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I've actually been quietly in studio listening to the conversation going on, and actually I'm really shocked that you had, that your guest had her first stroke as young as 25. That's insane. I've never heard of that before.
Yes, that is devastating. So that's why I don't want people, you know, like I said, when you're young, you think you're invincible. You think these things cannot happen to you. But I say at that age, it's the perfect time to get on top of your health so that you can prevent these diseases.
Yes, I definitely agree. And I pray that tonight's motivational moment will encourage everyone not only to take care of themselves, but I hope that this motivational moment will also encourage everyone to remember who God is. Remember that God is who he says he is, and that he always will be. Now, I want you all to pay attention to the fact that I did not say that God was or that he used to be. Tonight, we will be taking our key verse from Hebrews 13 and 8. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. So if our God remains the same, then that means that his sacrifice and power remains the same also. In Isaiah 53 and 5, it says, "But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds, we are healed." Our God is forever Jehovah Rapha, our God who heals us. So I would also like to leave you all with this quote, whose author is unknown. God's breath is like a fresh wind that renews us. Frail and weak as we are, we have hope. We find healing.
Amen. That was motivational. Yes. Thank you, Mylea Simone. I appreciate that motivational moment. We're going to go to our community connections. one of my sponsors, Sisters Working It Out, they are actually having their 4th Survivor Shine Hollywood Glam Gala. The donation is $100, and this is taking place Saturday, September the 23rd at 6 o'clock at the Chicago Marriott. You can go to sistersworkingitout.com for donations. And I know they're going to have some big wigs here, and that's why they're charging $100. The founder is actually Monica Peak, and she is MD. She started Sisters Working It Out actually years before she got diagnosed with breast cancer. And she ended up getting diagnosed after she started Sisters Working It Out. So they're having their annual event, and yeah, I'll be there for $100, people. So go to sistersworkingitout.com. So the money that they use to educate the community. We talked about how they are a health advocacy in motion. So they supply the survivors or the ones that are going through, again, with transportation, getting to and from the doctors. They help you with your medication. They sit at the doctor's office with you so that if you don't understand what's going on, if you have any questions, they help break it down for you. Any connections that you need as it relates to breast cancer, male or female, they are there to help you. Again, Sisters Working It Out. So we are back. Again, this is Lady ReShell with Warriors Talk on UBM Radio. If you're just tuning in, hello to everybody on Facebook. I appreciate you tuning in. Hello, Henry. I appreciate you tuning in. Again, we're talking to award-winning author Toneal Jackson, and she has informed us that at the age of 25, she had her first stroke. And I know when we think of somebody at the age of 25, we think of somebody who's just, you at the beginning of your life. You are just getting started. The last thing that you're thinking about is having a stroke. Yep. And if it's happening to you, you're like, okay, no, you kind of brush it off because, again, you're young, you're strong, you're healthy, and you figure, like, I have my whole life ahead of me. This is the last thing that could be happening to me. Once that does happen to you, not once, not 2 times, but 3 times, then it took you on a whole new route to, like you said, to empower yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, when it initially happened to me, I didn't understand what or why it happened because, again, prior to this, I was considerably healthy. I had never had any health issues, any major health issues. But, in my family, cancer does run in my family. Stroke does run in my family. High blood pressure, diabetes. All these things are issues that run in my family, but I don't have any of them. And so, you don't look if you don't have high blood pressure or diabetes, high cholesterol, if you don't have these things, then you just feel like, okay, well, I'm good. I'm out of the woods. I don't smoke. In terms of drinking, I've never been an alcoholic or anything like that. So certain things that they say, hey, if these things happen or if you do these things, technically they should not have applied to me. But I definitely want to make sure that we hit the point of stress. And, a lot of times stress can really be a silent killer. And I know that, like I said, when they finally diagnosed me with severe stress disorder, and, I don't wear labels, but at the same point, you have to know what plagues you. Yes. And so that way you can make wise decisions. And I remember asking the doctors many times, well, what can I do? Because they would just say, stop stressing. And I'm saying to myself, right. Okay, like how do you do that? I'm a wife, and I have by 2009 I had all 4 of my children, and my girls are 2 years apart. So by 2009 they're 1, 3, 5, and 7. So how are you a mother of 4 with a husband? And regardless of what type of job I had at that point, that's a lot in and of itself. And I've never just been a wife and a mom. I've always done so many different things. And so one of the things, and again, here's a nugget that I definitely want to share with your viewers, or listeners, I should say, is you got to learn how to say no. And that was something, I think it took me too long. I'm glad that I've learned it, and I still have not mastered saying no. But I've definitely become more acquainted with no, because sometimes we feel, and we were talking last time I was here about being a superwoman and being able to have it all, and sometimes you have to be able to incorporate that word no, because when you don't and you're just running yourself too ragged and you're stretching yourself too thin, you literally could be setting yourself up, because like I said, at the end of the day, the one factor that all of my different doctors can agree on is that they believe my root cause, what started my strokes, were all triggered by stress. And so you have to really kind of keep your stress factors and your stress levels under control. And it's like, to this day, I still don't necessarily know how to manage my stress, but what I do know is that now, when I'm tired, I just say I'm tired. That's a no. We'll pick this up tomorrow, because at the end of the day, you're not guaranteed to see tomorrow. And so you want to make sure that you do everything that you can do to ensure that you can see tomorrow.
And I agree with you. As women, like you said, we wear a lot of hats, and sometimes we are afraid to say no. And I think most of it has to do with, because we multitask, and we figured I could get it done faster and quicker. So, you know what, let me just do this myself. And all while we're doing that, we're stressing ourselves out. Absolutely. And then the people around us are just like, okay, she'll do it. You know, they know you're going to do it because you know you want it done in a specific way at a specific time. So you just, sometimes you end up doing it and over-exhausting yourself, stressing yourself out. Most of us go to bed late, get up early. Most of us don't. Sometimes we don't even eat right because we're always on the go doing things. And although you try to incorporate exercise, you try to incorporate healthy eating in that, because it said for women, obesity plays a role with you getting a stroke. Because, you know, most men, their body fat they carry their body fat well, and we don't. And so that's one of the things what separates men and women when it comes to stroke. There are some uncontrollable facts, it says, when it comes to strokes as well. So one of the facts, it says the uncontrollable risk, it says people over the age of 65. And you talked about the gender, the race, and the family. So those are things that are uncontrollable. Those are things that you can't do anything about. It just runs in your family. But we all know that you can, even though it runs in your family, you can still stay on top of that by going to the doctor, informing them what it runs in your family, first of all, and then seeing what steps you can take so you can stay away from that, which is your cholesterol, making sure that you're staying within your weight class. And like you said, they said, okay, yeah, I'm stressed, and what can I do to not be stressed? Well, like you said, you can say no. You can take days where you just relax, or times out of the day where you just detox yourself. If it's just 15, 20 minutes where you just sit alone by yourself, don't bother me, meditate, where you just have a moment. If you're just sitting or you're reading a book, you got to have that time to yourself. Absolutely. You got to have time for yourself. And stress is a big thing when it comes to women. For one, we hide it well. You're probably never going to know that we're stressed out. For one, we don't want to make everybody else upset around us. And like you said, when you were out and you could hear all this stuff going on around you, you wanted to reassure the people around you that things were okay with you. You sitting here unconscious trying to figure out, how can I let them know that I'm okay? You know, can I blink? Can I squeeze something? Can they look in my eye? You sitting there still working, trying to figure out, how can I let them know I'm okay? I'm good. I don't want y'all worrying about me. But you unconscious. You still know what's going on, but you couldn't even respond. And sometimes that's just God's way of saying, sit down somewhere, calm down,
have several seats. And I think, you know, I have to laugh it off, because when I go over certain things, you know, like in this interview, or even, you know, times when I'm talking with my husband and he'll tell me, you know, like how much stuff I do. And, you know, he's like, you're doing too much. And like you said, sometimes you don't necessarily realize you do too much. I'm going to tell you when I realize how much stuff I do. When I do interviews and when people introduce me and I'm like, what? Whoever that is needs to sit down, have several seats. Oh, that's me. Oh, okay. You know, because you don't really realize how much you do. And it's funny. I was actually just talking to my husband earlier today. I'm like, you know, I need some of my life back. Meaning that sometimes you do get to a point where you're stretched out too thin. And for me, I can balance my hats. Where my problem is coming is when, what you said earlier, so many people are used to being able to depend on you. So they just automatically say, oh, well, just give it to her. She'll do it. Or just give it to her. She doesn't mind. And for me, you know, people that know me know that I am very kind of straightforward. But one thing that people don't know is that for me, if you are in my circle, it's really hard for me to disappoint you, you know, like, and that seems stupid because it's like, okay, if they're in your circle, then who else can you say no to, you know, why not say, but for me, it's always been, you know, certain ones I don't want to say no to, but so when I have come to the terms that I gotta tell them no too, you know, like even them I have to say no to, and my husband said, absolutely. You know, he said, if you can't say no, I'll say no for you. He said, I'll say no for you, you know. And it's just at that point in my life where I'm like, because I have enough with just doing my own stuff. And so even though, yes, you might feel like, well, I love everything that you're able to do, and I want you to help me do that too. If I'm only doing it, because they'll use the word only, it's only 2 hours, or it's only 15 minutes, or it's only this day. And when I'm only doing this and only doing this and only, that adds up, you know. And I told him, I said, like, I just have to get back accustomed and acquainted with my word no, because I think I've stopped saying no. It's been too long since I said no. Wow. So a no is it's in order. Yeah.
And I think if you say it. If you say it enough, and it's not just you're saying no to just little simple things, but I mean, if you say no and they know that you're serious and they mean it, then people will not cross those boundaries that you set. They know that doing 5 to 9, that's Toneal's time to do what she needs to do. Don't bother her with that, you know. When she's available, then she'll be able to help me. But they'll come to learn to respect your boundaries. Now it says, although that strokes is the 5th leading cause of death in America and the leading cause of adult disabilities, there are many myths that surround this disease. So we're going to talk about real quick some of the myth and the facts when it comes to strokes. One myth is strokes cannot be prevented. And it says up to 80% of strokes are preventable.
Absolutely.
So that means that you have to get on top of your health.
Be proactive. Absolutely.
Now, another one says there's no treatment for strokes. And I think a lot of people think that, and we talked about that window, that 3-hour window. It is, if you can get in there within that 3-hour window, that's the time when that medicine can help leave you in the state that you were in before the stroke happened. They still have medicine that you can take after that, but in order for it to really be successful, you need to get in within that 3-hour window. So it says, at any sign of a stroke, call 911 because treatment is available. Strokes only affect the elderly.
Absolutely false. I'm still not elderly. In 30, 40 years, I still won't be elderly. No, that is such a myth.
It says, fact, stroke can happen to anyone at any time.
Absolutely.
A stroke happens in the heart. We mentioned that earlier. A stroke is a brain attack. It attacks the brain. Stroke recovery only happens within the first few months of a stroke.
You said stroke recovery?
Only happens within the first few months of a stroke.
Is that a myth?
That is a myth. It says it's a stroke recovery is a lifelong process.
Yeah, because I know for me, there are still times, and like I said, it's been 3 years, but there are still I slur a lot, and people that didn't know me before stroke, they don't know. But like for me, and going back to that whole thing about embarrassment, for me, though, I used to hate being on camera after my stroke because I could tell I was slurring. Other people couldn't, but I still, to this day, there are still a lot of different times where I slur, or there are times where I get like hiccups where my body just kind of freezes for a minute, and then it'll go ahead and keep going. So I mean, I know a lot. I'm in a couple groups with stroke survivors, and I mean it's years later, and we still have have certain issues and certain things. So yeah, that's why I was saying because it take a little bit longer sometimes. I mean, if you are fortunate to where you're back to 100%, but some of the other things that happen as well as memory loss.
Yes.
And because that's one of my side effects is short-term memory loss. Like there are a lot of things, and I tell people all the time, God gives me to remember the things I need to, because there are a lot of things, just random facts that I have no clue about. I totally, like, if people, you remember? No, I don't. And I tell people, like, the running joke is, don't ever start a sentence off with me with, you remember? Absolutely, I don't. I surely don't.
Wow. That reminds me of chemo brain. When you take chemo, they say you have chemo brain afterwards. And I have experienced it, like, when I was talking to somebody, and then I just forget my train of thought. And I was like, what was I just saying?
Yep.
And that could be scary, especially if you're having a conversation or if you're having interviews or if you do it, depending on the type of work that you're doing, that you're in mid-sentence and you just forget what you were talking about.
Absolutely.
I think people think, oh, you're joking, but no, it's true.
It's very serious, absolutely.
Another myth is strokes are rare. No, the fact says there are nearly 7 million stroke survivors in the U.S., and we talked about stroke again being a fifth leading cause of death. Strokes are not hereditary.
That's definitely a myth.
Yep, stroke runs in the family and it increases your risk. So we talked about that earlier. If you have stroke symptoms, they'll go away. You don't have to go see a doctor.
Don't be stupid like me. That's what I thought. It would just go away. I just was having a bad day. Let me just lay down. Absolutely not. Go to a doctor.
Go to a doctor. Toneal.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. I don't even know. You are a miracle sitting here. Let me just say that. You are a miracle sitting here because we know some people who have had strokes who have not recovered from them. I had an uncle who had the aneurysm. And it was just like he got up, was getting ready to go to work, went to the bathroom, fell, and that was it. Yep. And that was it. So that's my Uncle EJ, my favorite uncle. I love him. So give the listeners some words of wisdom when it comes to just strokes, the knowledge of strokes, so what to do if they think they're at risk.
Yeah. Well, it's really, I'm sitting here and it's so different for me because so many times when I'm doing interviews or people see me, they just see, okay, this literary person, and you don't know the backstory. And so I just want to let people know that, first of all, this is something that people deal with every day. And it's not something that just goes away. It's like you may have had a stroke, but you don't just get over it and keep on moving. And so the main thing that I want to say is take care of yourself. Appreciate your life. Appreciate the days that you have. I remember, telling them at my church when I came back from the first stroke and after the third stroke, I told them, I don't know. People, they might say stuff about, okay, how much I do or how much I praise or how hard I go in. And I tell them it's because I don't know when my last time will be. I believe God. When my Leah read that scripture, that's one of my favorite scriptures. He was wounded for our transgressions and bruised for our iniquities. And, we have to understand that with his stripes we are healed. So I do claim my healing. It's not that I doubt that I'm healed. However, I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. Only God knows that. And so what I encourage everybody to do is live every day to the fullest. Stop putting off, today or tomorrow what you can do today. And so I think that it's so important to do that because so many times we say, well, I'll do this when I'm 25 or I'll do this when I'm 32. We take time for granted. And I'm telling you, if you would have asked me when I was 23 or 22, did I think that I would have a stroke at 25? Absolutely not. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm doing this right and I'm healthy and I'm active and I'm all of these different things, but you don't know. And so I just want to encourage everybody, make sure you're taking care of yourself. Make sure, if you're supposed to be doing your physicals or your doctor visits, whatever it is, do that. Don't just feel like, oh, this will never happen to me, because I didn't even think it wouldn't happen to me because it wasn't something that was in my world. Like my first stroke happened, I think, 3 years after my biological father's stroke happened. Wow. And so, and when his stroke happened, he didn't have multiple. He had one. it was hemorrhagic, and it destroyed his brainstem. So he was basically a vegetable. And so the doctors, you know, said, hey, what do you want to do? Because he would literally be on life support for the rest of his life. And so when they took him off of the machine, they were trying to see whether or not he would be able to breathe on his own, and he couldn't. And it was literally, like you said, one day he was okay, and the next day he wasn't. And it could literally be that quick. And so I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I'm trying to be real with you. You know, when you see what people are going through, life is too short to be hating on somebody. You think, because you don't know their story. Right. And I thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about mine, because it's not a story that I talk about often, not because I'm ashamed of it, but again, because many times when people see me, they don't see the whole person. They just see this literary extraordinaire, this, you know, person who does all of this, or first lady or whatever. And I think it's really important to also let people know the story behind your story. So this is, you see the glam and the glitz and all of that, but this behind closed doors is what I go through on a daily basis. You know, I still to this day have like little episodes where I feel little tingles, or you know, when I'm having memory loss, I can be in the middle of a thought, as you said, and I just lose. I totally forget what I was saying. It's times where I might forget where I am, things like that. And those are things that people don't know, but it is the daily dealings with people who have suffered with strokes. And so I thank God that I'm not a victim, but I am a survivor.
Amen. Not a victim, but a survivor. And again, the time is your currency. And especially when it comes to stroke. Again, you have that 3-hour window. Remember the word FAST. FAST is for face drooping, arm weakness, speech slurring, and time to call 911. Warriors, remember to thrive while survive. Okay, hey Facebook. Thank you guys for tuning in. Vernita says, thank you for sharing, Toneal. Hey Margaret. Oh my goodness, if you guys are just tuning in, Rhonda says, yes, I most definitely have chemo brain. I know, right? Yeah. That chemo brain ain't nothing nice. You'd be like, and you be, sometimes you do, you be ashamed and you be embarrassed and you be like, what was we just talking about? Yeah. You know, and you try to recall, or sometimes I try and write down stuff, you know, when people are talking, so that I can kind of jog it off. Yeah. So, you know, you just have to make sure that it doesn't get to that point. I mean, once you're at that point and you have to deal with it, chemo brain has to pass. It's not something that you could take medicine for or anything like that. It's just something that your body has to recuperate. Yes. Absolutely. So we talked about are you at risk for a stroke? And if you had tuned in to the half hour, or you're just not tuning in, we were talking to Toneal Jackson, who is an award-winning author and 3-time stroke survivor. And we talked about 2 types of strokes. One is the brain clot, which is the ischemic, and hemorrhagic. That's when the blood vessel erupts in your brain. And we talked about the symptoms of a stroke, which is the weakness and numbness of the arm, the face, or leg, or on one side of the body, the loss of vision or dimming of vision in one or both eyes, the loss of speech, difficulty speaking, sudden severe headaches, or loss of balance. And then we talked about the controllable factors. The controllable factors that you can control is high blood pressure, controlling your diabetes, controlling your cholesterol, not smoking, watching your alcohol intake if you just got to drink, or don't drink, watching your weight, and if you have coronary artery disease. So those are things that are controllable. The uncontrollable factors are, it says people over the age of 65, your gender, and it says men have more strokes, but women's strokes are more deadlier. More deadlier for women. Being African American increases your risk. We talked about that, a stroke, or having a family history of strokes. So you have the knowledge. Empower yourself to take action with what you know. So we gave you some myths, we gave you some facts, and so you can always go back and watch the video over. Make sure again, hey Rigid Eric, please share this video. Please share this video. Again, we were talking about are you at risk for a stroke with Toneal Jackson, and she is a 3-time stroke survivor, award-winning author, and she also has a book coming out, and she's going to have a book signing coming up as well. Yeah. So the book signing, I know, is on October 14th. Yeah. And the name of the book, I know the title is not rejection, but it's about rejection.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay.
The title is Love Me Please, and the tagline is Rejection, Everyone Wants a Cure.
And you can pre-order the book if necessary. If you want to, you can pre-order the book. You can go to www.weareaps.com and you can pre-order the book as well. You can come out to the book signing on October the 14th. What's the address to the store?
It is 2653 South Lawndale, APS Books and More, and the signing will be from 3 to 6 p.m.
And if you have a thought that you want to write a book, you're putting something together, you're in the middle, you're stuck, and you don't know what to do, she has all of her services is catered around helping you get it on paper, helping you get it on print. And so as long as it's not
erotic or street lit. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So you have no excuse. Somebody out there needs to hear your story. Somebody out there wants to hear your story. Stop holding in these testimonies and encourage somebody and let somebody know what you've been through so that they know that they could be a survivor and they can be an overcomer as well. Amen. Do you have any last words to me?
No, I'm grateful for everybody that tuned in. I hope that we were able to educate some people because sometimes they're more inclined to tune into a Facebook post than they would to actually go to a doctor. Mm-hmm. So hopefully if they know anyone, as you said earlier, or they know someone who has been suffering some of these things that we discussed, they'll understand that this is not a game. It is serious and they need to go get checked out.
Amen. I totally agree. If you guys are not doing anything on October the 7th, I encourage you to come out to the Survivors Night of Reflection. It's going to be held next door, 4100 South King Drive from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Saturday. The tickets are $15. You can go to warriorstalk.org to purchase your ticket. If you can't come and you just want to donate, you can do that as well. Just hit that donation button. Again, it's called the Survivors Night of Reflection, and that's the survivors' chance to reflect and our chance to raise money to give to those warriors that are currently in battle. She said, please give contact information again.
Okay, so the book signing is going to be Saturday, October 14th from 3 to 6 p.m. at APS Books and More, which is 2653 South Lawndale in Chicago. Or you can just go to the website, which is www.weareaps.com, www.weareaps.com.
All right. So check her out, ladies. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, anything you need help with, and
literary is my life.
Yes. You're going to get educated. She could get the job done. You will not be disappointed. So I thank you guys for tuning in. That was Margaret Burton that asked for the information. Thank you, Mary. Mary put the... Mary,
that's my forever assistant, yes.
She be on it. WeAreAPS.com. You can go there and get the information about Toneal Jackson and her business. APS stands for Authors Promoting Success.
Absolutely.
So thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate it. Keep thriving while surviving.